I've been living in this house for, I think, about 8 months. Yeah, during that time everything's been totally fine. I'm only really moving out just because of a sort of special set of circumstances, I suppose. Yeah, everything here has been really great. I actually lived at home until I was about 24. My parents wanted me to stay there for as long as possible. When I was young, I had a younger brother that died, and I kind of get the feeling that sort of, as life goes on, because of that, they tend to want to, to hold on to their children for as long as possible. And they knew I had to leave the nest eventually, yeah, because of that, they were happy for me to stay there as long as it took for me to get my wings. Yeah. I, could have stayed there forever. And to be honest, I'm actually very, very lucky to have that. Not many people in New Zealand, as far as I'm aware, have the ability to not only have a fantastic relationship with their parents, but for their parents to be, well off enough so that I could essentially mooch off them for as long as I wanted to. But it's one of those things where if you don't move out, if you don't become independent, then you'll never really grow up. You need to have that sort of self-reliance to be able to solve your own problems and, figure out what the real world is. And I would have loved to stay there forever. It would have been awesome. I'd be saving so much money. I'd be, obviously spending more time with them until they're retired. But at the end of the day, in 20, 30, 40 years' time, I'm going to be a better person for making that choice and moving out than if I'd stayed. Like, look back on how I was before I moved out, and I was a lot more introverted and a lot more sort of, less self-assured and much less confident. And now it's completely reversed. And I feel that a large portion of that is because I've, lived in these different situations that I hadn't experienced before. So in this flat, it's extremely social. People come over all the time, and I really like that, I really do. But it's also very difficult to sort of focus on things that you want to do. And recently I've decided that there are some things I want to do with my life. I've decided I want to get into writing, I'd be interested in getting stand-up comedy, and I want to play guitar a lot more, among other things. And it's just so much easier to do that in a flat where people aren't coming over all the time. So this place I'm moving into is just myself and one other mate, and he's also the kind of guy who, when I moved into this flat, he showed up with his truck to help me move stuff, and I hadn't even told him I was moving. So he's like such a good guy that I know that we're going to have no issues at all. So it's not really factors that are pushing me out of this flat so much as factors that are pulling me into the next one. I think what makes a flat work, and this applies to pretty much every single flat, is communication. And that's actually something that I believe is true for any relationship. With your parents, with your friends, with your partner, with your flatmates, with your boss, with anyone, communication is the key. It's also about taking emotion out of the situation. If you come to your flatmates and you say, I'm really angry about things, then you're not thinking rationally, things can get out of hand, you're going to get into a big argument, and you really don't want to get into arguments with people you live with. So it's all about, living with people who are okay if you tell them, I don't like this and I want to change, but also you're okay if they say the same thing to you. But either way, communication is definitely the number one, thing that you can do to keep it flat. To keep everything civil, to keep everyone happy, and to live the way you want to live.